Is blockchain gaming really going to be something big, or is it just hype? Last crypto bear market, most thought nothing would come of it, at least until Axie Infinity did amazing things, putting this new idea of true ownership that blockchain makes available on people's radars and confirming my investment thesis that this idea of ownership would radically transform gaming. But we're in another bear market. And with that, and even though we probably come to the end, I think we're starting to climb up. There's a lot of people that are still impacted emotionally by what we went through. And because of the bear market and that prices have radically declined, people lose hope. More importantly, they lose vision. Some people don't really understand yet how big blockchain gaming is going to be. As humans, we have a hard time seeing what isn't here yet. Perhaps it is only something 10% of people can do, but I'd like to think it's much, much more than that. It's just that most don't really practice it. With investment, this is the game. You have to take existing known facts and ideas and project out what might come together. Bahrain, I want to know what to buy now that will 10x from here. And we want some kind of guarantees. We want some kind of certainty. But investment isn't a realm of certainty, it's a realm of possibilities. And so many come into the space thinking that things are certain, usually when massive green candles have happened, and they're just certain that it's going to continue for forever. And then they find out things aren't certain. They end up upside down, and then they leave. Now, some, the smart ones, come in, perhaps don't realize it at the beginning either, and they probably lose some money, but still they stick around long enough to realize this game of possibilities and learn how to peer into the possibilities to make good guesses. And this is the space for those people who get pretty good and then make life-changing gains. I do have a link to my course, Zero to Crypto Hero, down below. For any of you serious about the space and life-changing gains, don't miss it. I do share what took me decades to understand about investing in my 6 years crypto investing background that helped me make millions in this space. There is a code for half off, but once those are gone, the half off is gone. Today we have a guest coming on that I've appreciated his intelligence, his wit, his analytical skills, and he gets it about where blockchain gaming can go and the possibilities out there, as well as he almost has a superhuman way of breaking down what those possibilities could mean. Stay tuned because I think you're going to love his insights, because I do. Welcome to the Crypto Rain channel and our family. And if you're looking for crypto news without context anyway, if you're looking for panic selling or FOMOing in, you can find that in a lot of other places, but you won't find that here. If you, like me, came into crypto because you realized the potential for life-changing gains over a 4 to 8 year period, and you're looking for discussions on becoming a solid and shakable crypto investor, you're in exactly the right place and the right family, the Rainmaker family. All right. Do note, I'm not a financial advisor. Our guest Scoriox is not a financial advisor. We're crypto investors ourselves. I do want to give a big shout out to our strategic partners, Bumper and OneChain. These strategic partners give me great access to insights from the team, as well as tokens to give away every month, which I give away when I do my Friday live streams. Now, if you haven't already, make it rain on that like button and strap in for the show. And let's welcome Scoriox to the channel. Scoriox, thank you so much for joining us.
Yeah, it's good to be back. I've been on the channel a few times now.
Yeah, I love your insights, the way you look at blockchain gaming. And even though this is your first cycle, I feel like you have a solid understanding of where this is going. And it's curious to me, like, where that comes from. Because so many people come into the space, they get this far into the bear market and they wither away and leave.
I mean, you're not wrong. I've had thoughts every now and then, especially on that very first dip we experienced after we hit 65K or whatever it was. But I knew that I needed something to tether me here. Like, I needed a project to stick with, something to pay attention to, and that sort of stuff. But more importantly, that's one of the minor reasons I started the channel. Is I'm like, I need to be productive, and it didn't take me long to figure out that you don't make money in the space from buying a bunch of tokens or buying some NFTs, right? You make money in the space from building in the space. YouTube is one way to do it. Buying tokens and getting more involved with DAOs of some of your favorite projects is another way to do it. There are lots of really easy ways to be building in the space, and creating content around something that you think needed content is just one of those ways.
That's a good point. It is one of the ways that can create you some good income. I would argue that solid investment is the way you make it absolutely wealthy in this space. But I do know a lot of YouTubers that isn't their strength. And so they make good income from their channels and partners and other things. But investing in this space does take a while. Like we're way, way, way down right now. And so a lot of people bought higher and then they get dispirited and they're like, oh my gosh, this doesn't turn around. But it does, especially when you buy low. But buying low is the hardest time, right? So when prices are way, way down, and say Bitcoin's at 30,000, but other altcoins, other NFTs are just wrecked and savage, and they say, and they just get frustrated and they don't dollar cost average in at these lows. Then things go crazy, and then they start to get it. The smart ones, they're like, crap, I missed it. But some of the really smart ones, or stubborn, or maybe not smart at all, and just keep plowing money in during these bear markets in smart projects, I've seen them make life-changing gains. I have several friends that are multimillionaires from this space, and they're not any smarter than anyone else. They were just too stubborn to quit during the bear market. And they thought, well, I want to be buying when everyone else is selling, and everyone else is selling, so that must mean I should be buying. And they didn't just throw it at like dumb projects or meme coins. They made thoughtful, articulate investments. And when the market turned around, they went 100, 150x and became multimillionaires.
Yeah, even myself, like, how do I put this? I put a lot into ILV, let's put it that way, and I've been very not diversified since the bear market started. But there was this thing where I kept telling myself, I'm going to start DCA, into just like a variety of projects really slowly over time. And you know what? I just never did it. Like, it sounds naive. I know that's the best path forward. I'm not a fool. I know that's what I'm supposed to do, but I still never did it. And why that is because I got caught up in all the rest of the hype. Now, you know what? That's still a part of my journey and something that I still want to do. Whereas I'm talking about like dropping a bunch of money on just like random NFTs so I can try out all these different games and all that sort of stuff. I had a lot of fun doing that. I saw that less so as an investment and more as just like expenditure on goods, like you would buy any game, right?
Right.
And I dropped a lot of money on that sort of stuff when I probably should have been DCAing. And even recently, I set up a proper DCA where it automatically takes money out of my bank and stuff like that. So I just don't have to manage that. I don't have to worry about it. And I'm finally in a position where I'm actually preparing for whenever the bull run might come, even if it's not next year. It'll come eventually, or at least I believe it will come eventually. And at that point, I would have DCA'd for however many weeks.
Yeah, and my best guess is next year is the bull run. It could come sooner than that because of this whole Bitcoin ETF thing, and institutional adoption could make it come early and maybe even make it go a fairly long period of time where we'd still be climbing into next year and then the year after that. We'll see how this plays out, but I don't think it would take any longer than 2 years from now, barring major world changes like big war that EMPs going off everywhere, frying people's electronics. All bets are off. Who knows what things are going to be like if things like that are happening. But short of that, crypto's been somewhat regular with 4-year cycles, massive retracements. Everyone gets dispirited. And what's funny is we hit these psychological blocks. I felt that last bear market. I still DCA'd in, but I didn't DCA in as much as I could have. Why? Because you're blocked. You're just kind of like, it's not fun to buy when things are low and then they go lower on you. And it almost is like every time you touch something, you get your hand slapped. And so you stop wanting to touch it, even though that's exactly the right thing to do. It's hard. And I did push through that enough that I just kept throwing money in. I did get really excited when certain things I was watching closely got ridiculously cheap. And when they got ridiculously cheap, I was just like, okay, this is just so underpriced. And the FUD was really, really high. I relate that to what Comey's token OMI has been going through the last number of months. And picking up more OMI, because I just think sometimes in the bear market, things align, the stars align just right, that is extra FUD happens and pushes the price down to prices it shouldn't go. I would wish that would happen with Illuvium, because I'm actually really bullish on Illuvium's future. Like, there is like this question mark in that they're spending their money and they're getting to the end of their timeline. They only have so much runway. And will it come together? I actually think it will, but it is a risk.
I'm not sure if you're aware of this then, but Illuvium did manage a successful capital raise a few months ago.
No.
And they got another 10 mil in capital. So with their current burn and all the rest of it, what they announced is basically they've got like something like 18 months.
Okay.
Like they've got like end of 2025.
So long.
Yeah, yep. They've got like end of 2025 runway now. So they're probably, I hate to say it, but they're probably, outside of anything that's building in the shadows, they're probably the safest Web3 project in terms of just runway and build times and stuff at the moment in the space. So it's pretty powerful stuff. And it definitely puts, I've got a lot of ILV. It definitely puts me at ease. So I'm not going to lie.
Come on, FUD. Push that price down some more. I would not mind. Yeah, in September, I'll probably have some more liquidity coming in, maybe even a bunch. And I'm like, oh my gosh, if only prices could stay this low or even go lower through September. I just don't know that it will happen, but that would be great. Because then I'd be crazy. I would put a bunch more in ILV. That's one of my favorite ones. And even at today's prices, though I'd love it for it to get cheaper, it is sufficiently in my green zone that I'm super happy. Right. And people say, what if it doesn't come together? I invested in Axie Infinity last cycle, and I thought Axie had way more chances of failing, and it didn't end up failing. It ended up doing like 3000x, but I thought it had greater chance of failing than where Illuvium is now. Anything can still fail, but their product that they're delivering, I've been playing their Illuvium 0, and I have 22 plots. Oh my gosh. And I'm trying to get each one far enough where I can get the blueprints. And I even had a really late start with it because my account somehow got messed up, or I had 22 plots and it couldn't load in. And they said somehow my data had corrupted somehow. They were able to fix it. And so, yeah, I'm trying to get those blueprints. And I'm looking at these things coming together for Illuvium that I was like, this thing could be really huge. We see how this idea of ownership is going. And even with, have you been following CSGO and how they've sold $30 billion of skins, like from person to person? So 30 billion has changed hands in the marketplace on the CSGO skins.
I'm familiar. Yeah. My brother's a bit more into it than I am, but he tells me about some of the big events that happen in that space. And I played CSGO a little bit in the past. My mates used to love it, so I used to play with them sometimes. Yeah. I suck at the game, mind you, but I'm familiar with CSGO. Yeah.
The skins, well, I think people are hungry for this idea of ownership and this idea of value capture. And CSGO gives them a little bit of that, even though the marketplace fees are like 15%. And it's not true ownership because you get your account banned and bam, access to all your stuff is gone. And I don't even know that you can extract the value from Steam's ecosystem. And yet the marketplace is doing crazy things because this idea of ownership will transform everything. And even they're giving them partial ownership. And that's enough that people have put $30 billion into a popular game's items.
you can't extract value, but I think there's a little bit of a gambling mentality there that works really well for them, right? So you have all these major video games. Some good examples, because you got to think loot box-esque. The only other big example I can think off the top of my head is probably like Overwatch, where you can go out there, you can get all these loot boxes, and now you can see what cosmetics you can get. Apex Legends is probably a pretty good one as well. And then you have this thing where you typically don't pay for this stuff, but you can. You can pay $10 to get an extra box or whatever it might be. But in CSGO, every single loot box you have to pay money for, which seems really weird, or at least most of them. It's a lot harder to get it, which seems really weird in the grand scheme of Web 2 gaming. In pretty much every game, you get a lot of these loot boxes and cosmetics for free. And CSGO is just not that way. But people are willing to do it, not just because there's a cult following for CSGO, but they know that whatever that they get out of there, it might be worthless, might not be worth much. Whatever they get out of there, they do have the agency to sell it or give it to someone else or whatever, and they have the chance of pulling that thing that's worth $1 million. And that is enough for someone to say, look, I could buy a loot box in this game that I like, or I could buy one here, and I would also have the chance of scratching off that lottery ticket and winning $1 million. It's the same thing, except this time I have a chance at winning $1 million. So I'm going to pick this one every time, right? It's very, very simple. And then you add all the mechanics with being able to pull that and have a lot more safety in the decentralized nature of it all. And it's just the same thing, but on steroids. But I don't think people are going to care about that too much. But just the ability to be able to sell it later, or the ability for it to be a lottery ticket of some kind, is important to people. It's a reason to choose that over something else. That's really all it comes down to.
Do you want to give a shout out? We are live. If you have questions, feel free to ask them. Cole, I'll get to your question in just a sec. How long would you guess we have left before Omi starts to rise? Troy McDrain says, good morning. It's exciting to me where this is going, because CSGO and Axie Infinity kind of prove this value exchange thing that can happen, and how it just makes it fun. Plus you have like almost like a lottery behind it, right? So CSGO really proved that out with the loot boxes. They are kind of like a lottery, and the fact that you can get things out of these loot boxes, and if it's really valuable, sell it. It does guide their money directed more towards CSGO. And then there's some wealthy people out of Saudi Arabia, right, that play the game. They're like, F this. I'm going to buy $150,000 worth of these items because I like them, and I'm going to quit them. And it becomes like a flex, a social flex, right? And as humans, we love social flexes, which is why Bored Apes Yacht Club did so well. You know, the true use case of Bored Ape Yacht Club became a Twitter profile pic. That was your use case. And because of the social flex of that, if you had one of those, oh, you are somebody. And so then people were paying $60,000 for it, and $80,000, and then $100,000. And then these celebrities and sports figures got them. And then it was like even a bigger social flex. So these people with money would just drop crazy money on them. And then, you know, with the crypto market pulling back, then it's like the power of the social flex behind it died, or just kind of came back with this happens every cycle, right? And everyone gets all like bummed and depressed and bored, right? Which is why one of the phrases I always tell people to think about is buy when it's boring, because the crypto space is boring right now. And that's what makes it hard to put money in there. There's nothing exciting happening. If you buy right now, the chances that it's going to go 10x in the next month are like really, really low. But your chances that a good purchase from now goes 10x over the next 2 years are extremely high. It's just hard to see that far in the future, because we do get this recency bias effect of what has been happening the last 6 months feels like that's what's going to continue happening. And that's part of what stops us from buying, in my opinion.
Yeah, I think it's tricky. And I think the other thing with the celebrities getting involved with things like Bored Ape and stuff is, it's all good and great when crypto is trending, right? That's what a celebrity does a lot of the time. It's they catch on the trends and then they get even bigger. And they're pretty big already, so they don't necessarily need to. But anyone who's trying to get famous, that's one of the shortest paths to do so. What gets interesting is when you start to enter a bear market, the first thing everyone's saying is crypto is a scam, right? And it doesn't matter who you are. You don't want to be even remotely affiliated with any sort of scam. And so that means you exit the crypto market, and then there's no more celebrities that are going to put their name to one of these bases, because it's even a little bit tied to the scams of the crypto market. You've got things like Celsius, FTX, and all that sort of stuff just going on. It's like, okay, I don't want anyone to know I want to buy one of these Bored Apes. I'm not going to buy one. But when the next bull run hits, it's trending again. You're like, okay, I'm going to buy one now. You know what I mean? Like, it's counterintuitive for them, but they have enough money that it doesn't really matter, to be quite honest. But I think that's a lot of the systems in place.
Yeah. What are your thoughts on where Illuvium is going? So they've got like the trinity of Illuvium, right? Which is Illuvium Overworld, Illuvium Zero, and Illuvium Arena, where it's like team fight tactics. You still excited on how it's coming together, where things are at?
Yeah, I've never been more bullish. I made a lot of I've never been more bullish videos. So to put it simply, Illuvium Zero is the one that's taken more of the backseat at the moment. But the team has been speaks a lot in the Discord and stuff like that, and they've got big plans for Illuvium Zero, but it's not going to be the highest priority in the next coming months. PvP is slated for Q3. From anything we've heard, it sounds like they're on track. I don't know if that's going to be August or September. It seems more like the easier guess is September, obviously, being towards the back end of Q3. But it looks exciting. They've leaked a few things and stuff like that. And they've also announced the deck building is going to be in the beta. I played a lot of closed betas recently in things you would akin similar to card games. And they all had preset decks. And that was my biggest gripe every time. That's the sort of thing that made me want to put down the game. It was like, okay, I've played this deck already. The deck is kind of made up of shit cards. I'm just going to stop. Or I know exactly what my opponent's going to play. It just got really stale really quickly. So just knowing that our PvP beta is going to have deck building in it, even if it's rudimentary, it's going to be a big advantage to the replayability of the beta. And then there's the overworld, right? So we got the overworld PB2 recently where you can explore the 3 regions. And people still think it's a bit boring. And that's perfectly fine. It's not perfect. And they're polishing up some of the regions now. But Grant has also been teasing in the Discord and stuff of some of these new mechanics for chasing alluvials around and some of these other leaks and things like that. And we don't know exactly what he has in store for us, but the team is fully aware where the game needs improvement. All right. That's the hardest thing with those developers, like your major studios that build in the shadows or whatever, which is fine. I mean, they're pretty good at game design. You can usually trust them. Mm-hmm. But it's great just knowing that the team is fully aware of what needs to be improved. And I know that they're working on that and they're improving that as we speak. And I'm looking forward to the next iteration of it. As long as it's better than the last one, nothing else really matters. I mean, you're not going to get it perfect on the first or the second try. And it's going to take a while before it's the absolute best it can be. But as long as it's better than the day before, that's all that matters. And I know that they're doing that, so we're all good.
Yeah, I want to share the price on Illuvium. And so I'm going to be a little bit absurd here, but it's a little bit absurd because what's funny is as human beings, we're more likely to want to buy up here than down here. And it just is what it is, right? So we actually see this really nice double bottom happening. It's touched down close to where it was before, but not quite. And probably this is the window. Now, could it break down below this? Oh, I would hope so. I would love it. Will it? I would give it a 20% chance it will. I think in the future that if Illuvium survives, and I don't see why they don't survive at this point, this price will be like, oh my gosh, you were around when ILV was $40. And you can have like different answers to that. Your answer could be, yeah, but I was hoping it would go to 20. And so I didn't buy any. Your answer could be, yeah, I was so happy when it went below $50 and I stocked up as much as I could. Or your answer could be, nah, I waited till it hit $100 before I started buying in. And that's what a lot of people are going to be at. And that's just human nature. And that's why so few people make money as investors in crypto. It literally, the numbers, Scoriox, are like 5%. And we're doing this experiment with the Rainmaker family in that, can we teach people to think differently so that the number ends up being a lot higher than 5%? If you share with people the experience that you've been through and the wisdom that didn't just come from you, but other people that taught you about investing, of buying when it's boring, try to make it fun and engaging so people understand these principles, and see if you can get the percentage of people that are listening to that way up, possibly even to 100% if they're truly listening and engaging in those ideas of buying when it's boring, researching, and then being patient and letting everything play out. Now, don't know how this will go. I know the principles of investing that I talk about all the time absolutely work. Can we get the number way higher than 5%? I suspect we can, and it seems like we're doing it, though things are still way down. So we'll really know when the market goes crazy who didn't get washed out of their positions because they panic sold out, and who's actually made life-changing gains. And I suspect a lot of my audience is going to do quite well, and that's pretty exciting to me.
I don't think you should be aiming for 100%. I don't think that really exists. If you're talking about people investing in crypto, if it's 100%, then no one made any money. The 5% needs to make money off of the 95%, and that's just the reality of it. If you're talking about 100% of your audience, then that is perfectly fine. But then you're hoping that your audience is the 5%. You know what I mean? Of everyone.
That's exactly what I'm hoping. But that is why the gains are so high, is that 95% of people do this wrong. And so that's also why my goal for the channel isn't to be the biggest crypto channel. It would be impossible for those goals to coincide. Because, for example, there are certain big YouTube personalities, and it seems like they're prophets because everything they say is going to go up. It goes up. But they have like 700,000 subscribers. So it's a self-fulfilling prophecy, because then, say 100,000 of their subscribers buy the token, it doubles, and he's like, see, I told you it was going to go up. But literally it was the audience itself that pumped the token. And so it's like, and realize that a bunch of the audience were the ones buying after it was up 2x, and then it retraces on them. And so this experiment can't work if I have 1 million plus subscribers, when the overall, I guess it can down the road when everything is higher, but it's important to be like, there's a reason why you have the Marines for certain things, which are huge groups, and then you have Navy SEALs for like a much smaller, highly trained group that is much more effective. So I like for sure. Think of our little family as the Navy SEALs of crypto.
Yeah, it's going to be a bit like that. Even I watched some of those channels when I was first coming in, and I just like aped into all the coins that they were shilling and stuff like that. And I had a lot of instances where I bought something at like 5 cents, and then it went to 10 cents, and I sold some of it or most of it, and then it went to like $100 billion. And I was like, crap. I had a lot of those instances, and I'm not going to make that same mistake again. Firstly, I'm going to pull out my profits when I get them.
Yes.
But more importantly, if I have conviction in a project, I have conviction in a project. The price isn't going to matter as much to me, and it's never going to retrace more than it was kind of its lows of the previous cycle, right? Like if it retraces down to 15 cents and it goes up, the next time, even if it goes down another 95%, I don't expect it to go back down to that 15 cents. You know what I mean? So it's more about just like finding the projects you think are going to do well long term, and you think have a great team behind them, and then just kind of doing that research into that, really.
Yeah, let me check. SoCal homie says 2 of my favorite YouTubers on my favorite projects. Let's go. Troy McDray says, yeah. Levon Hardy says, just tuned in. What coins are you guys talking about right now? We're actually talking about a breadth of them. I did pull up the charts for Illuvium because I feel like I'm super excited about the price that's in. Everyone has to make their own decisions, but I like this chart pattern in this area. This is well within my green zone of when I buy. And but because I don't do financial advice, I can't tell you what to think about it. I can share just what I think about it. Let's jump. Let's see. There was another question that was really good. I want to ask you, what do you think about Pyre? Have you followed this token, this project at all?
I've heard of PYR, but I don't know what it is. I
Pyre
heard about it a
is
long time ago.
Vulcan forged.
All right. Is that like is that like a Steam kind of thing?
Yeah, it is like a Steam. So they have a bunch of games. They're pretty basic games at this point, right? So they took existing games out there that are successful and made like little crypto versions of them. So I would say it depends on how advanced the games get, but I think they're sufficiently big and positioned well that when money comes into the market, they'll do well. But their market cap is already 73 million. If we were to compare that to, let's say, Illuvium's market cap 231 million. So yeah, I like Illuvium's potential future better, but I think Vulcan Forge has enough of a community that when money comes in the market, they can do really well. So they peaked out before at like $42, and they're all the way down. They're down 92 or 93x or 93%, which isn't too bad for a bear market for an altcoin. That's actually not even a savage pullback. Often tokens will retrace 97 to 99% in the bear market.
I think even Illuvium it's like 95 to 96 or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
I think ultimately you're not really going to be able to miss. That's what I found the last time metaverse tokens kind of took off is if you believe in the space in general and if you think it's going to do well or it's going to trend at any point, it doesn't really matter which token you throw your money into. But in terms of a more longer term view, like 5 to 10 years, you're obviously going to want to pick the one you think is going to be the best project or the most successful team or whatever. But ultimately, when there is mania and stuff, just everything goes up. It's even in the last one, I had some Engine token for a bit. Even though I didn't know what Engine was about, I just knew it was a metaverse token of some kind. And Engine's, from what I've heard, is not a very good project. I mean, it's kind of average. So it doesn't matter too much. I think what I'm a bit more cautious of nowadays is like with Vulcan Forged, there are a lot of companies doing that whole lots of mini games thing now.
Mm-hmm.
And they're not doing it particularly well. Vulcan, I think, is one of the exceptions. They're doing a pretty good job. But pretty much every single metaverse has poker in it now. And I'm starting to get like, well, which poker do you play? You need some reason for someone to choose yours. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
I think that's mostly going to come down to the broader ecosystem. If people are in your ecosystem for other reasons, then they might play a poker. Or if your poker is particularly good or it's visually cool, or maybe it's in VR, that's pretty cool, that sort of stuff. But you need a reason for people to come to your poker over everyone else's, since everyone's doing it. And until I see that sort of thing, it gets a bit hard to choose which sort of projects I want to get into.
Yeah, the idea of throwing poker in there, one of the problems with it I've seen with crypto and gambling together is that, these crypto projects are like, yeah, we're doing gambling, and they get a bunch of hype because people are like, yeah, gambling coming to the blockchain. But why? Here's the thing: is people who are actual gamblers, they have their sites they use. They don't care whether it's on the blockchain or not. If they're happy with their site, there's no reason for them to change. In fact, they won't change. You might create new gamblers that are within the crypto space coming to your thing, but that mass adoption wave never seems to come for them, because why does blockchain do gambling better? Well, it doesn't. Maybe the higher transparency, so they're not cheating, they don't have some secret god mode. But really, do you know that anyway, even if it's on the blockchain? You really don't. So I don't know why the blockchain does it better.
For me, there's definitely a freedom thing. At some point, the American government and most governments are going to try and take control of everyone's spending. And gambling is going to be the first thing to go. They're going to say, you're not allowed to use your money on any sort of gambling. The only way you're going to be able to do that is by using things like decentralized currencies and stuff like that. I don't know how that's going to go. Long story. In the end, but I definitely think there's some sort of there's a great benefit to using Ethereum or Bitcoin or whatever on whatever gambling site you choose. But there's really nothing stopping some of those Web 2 platforms, and I think they already do. Some of the original poker sites that have already got crypto integration, I think. So you're right. I don't think there's any reason someone would want to change. But I definitely think, like, I don't know if you remember, like, Zynga Poker on the phone. It was just like I don't know if you could probably put real money on it. I use the fake money or whatever. But it was just like they basically put poker into your mobile phone and they made it really intuitive. And there was just a great way to do it. And it was really casual. No money you really had to put in unless you were, I don't know. I never did it myself, but it was just really open and really casual and just kind of anyone could download this app and play it. And it's those sorts of innovations that are going to make these sorts of projects successful. It's not just having poker. It's having poker, but doing it in a way that you either attract a new audience or it's just a better experience overall. It's that sort of stuff that I look for when I'm looking for any project, really.
Yeah, and gambling's not my wheelhouse. It's too bad because I got an offer to be part of like one that launched on Cardano to buy in their pre-sale. I could have put 50 or 100,000 into it and it ended up going like 10x. But I was just like, gambling just isn't my wheelhouse. And it since like pulled back massively from there. And I just stay away from it. I do like poker, especially in person, because the strategy behind it, the body language conveyance behind it, that's amazing to me, right? And there is like, I do like poker as far as all the gambling out there because it's very strategic. And that part's fun, but I don't actually gamble because the odds aren't good enough for me. Why would I gamble when we've got odds like what we can do with these things? That when the prices are way, way down, my odds, the way I see them, of making really good money, possibly 10 times my money, possibly 100 times my money, I feel like are 70%, which when you have those kind of odds, you would take that all day long. The problem when you go gamble is the odds of you winning are 47%. Or sometimes worse than that. And I don't like those odds. Why would I take a 47% when I can be patient, do it through crypto research so I can up my odds as much as possible, buy when it's boring so I can up my odds as much as possible, and then just wait patiently for massive multiples on my money. That's what has me so excited about crypto. And that's why I left real estate investing, is because the waiting time is so long. In that waiting time, you know what you're doing? You're dealing with renters. You want to know how to lose your hair? Dealing with renters. So like in crypto, you don't even have to deal with renters that you have to evict when they don't pay. Or one guy, he hadn't even moved in yet, and he took apart the furnace and was selling the parts for probably meth money, and like it's just like, oh my gosh. So
that's actually something we have been suffering with in Web3 gaming. Is the crypto space is really fast and game development is notoriously slow. Like, I would argue software development is often faster than game development. So you have this problem where you can either invest in a game that's maybe going to develop in 1 year, but the game is not going to be better than Call of Duty, and you can invest in that. Or you can play the really high risk and invest in that 5 to 10 year project that's going to come out really, really well. But you're like, my money's going to be locked up for so damn long, and I could be investing in all these other crypto projects. It's a bull run every 4 years. Why would I lock my money up for 5 years? You know what I mean? So that's the big thing that Web3 is suffering from. And I have a feeling there's a lot of large companies building in the shadows, and they're going to come out of nowhere. They didn't need VC funding because they're big studios that are already seasoned developers and everything. But I think that's why I got lucky with Illuvium, is they're supernatural, I'm telling you. Being able to develop what they have in 2 years is uncanny. And lots of crypto games have. But that's the other side of things, is a lot of Web3 games feel a little bit like indie projects. But the difference is you can bankroll a Web3 game. Your indie projects have 10 people working on it. But if you can raise 10, 20 mil on your Web3 game, you have the ability to scale up to 100, 200 people. It's a lot harder on things like startups, though, because they've never done it before. And even Illuvium suffered from that at one point in its life cycle. And that's just one of those things that, I think experienced devs that come into this space and can raise enough money and know what they're doing, they're going to succeed every single time.
You know what sold me on Illuvium since the early days? The Warwicks, right? Because it's all about leadership. And I was like, these guys, I just saw Kieran as like a pit bull. You know how they can lock their jaw and they like don't let go? And I'm like, see, he's new to game development. He's played games and there's a learning curve associated with it. But I had followed his brother's success with synthetics. And I was like, this guy is just as tenacious. In fact, he's going to want to beat his brother's success with synthetics.
Oh, yeah.
And he's not going to let go of that. And then I got to know over time, watching some videos. I don't know them in person. The only one I've interviewed on the channel is Kieran. But the other ones, I was like, wow, this is a family of driven people. And I was like, I think they're going to figure it out. And I think they're going to hit a home run with this for those that are patient. When people say, is it a guarantee? I'm like, F no. You're in the wrong space for any kind of guarantees. There are no guarantees. But the truth is, in life, there are no guarantees. You don't know that you're going to wake up tomorrow. You don't know that a meteor is not going to strike in 1 week and wipe out the whole planet. We don't know that we're going to be in World War III in, 4 months. There are no guarantees. So stop looking for them. Just realize it's all possibilities and probabilities. And play the probabilities in your favor. And that's what I like about crypto, especially during these bear markets. 95% of people have left. Great. Sad to see you don't really get it, but that's part of the reason there's such good money here. Because then the 5% that take advantage of these opportunities at really, really low prices. I mean, look, Vulcan Forge massively down. There's a line of people waiting to buy at these prices and nobody in line to buy at these prices. And these patterns happen in real estate. They happen in lots and lots of things. And they're happening now in crypto. I mean, Illuvium way down at these prices. And yet most people are going to sit on the sidelines and they're going to be like, I'll get it later. I'll get it if it hits 20, even though they were saying 6 months ago, I'll hit it if it hits 45. Or I'll get it if it hits below 50, and then it hits below 50. And you know what they don't do? They don't buy. How do I know this? Because of all the people I've met in crypto, I know a handful that are multimillionaires from it. And you know what that handful has in common? Varying levels of IQ, just like this base. That's not what they have in common because their IQs are all very different, is the stubbornness to buy when it got cheap. Even when their wife was telling them how stupid an idea it was and everything, they still did it. And then they did it some more. And then their wife got really mad at them. They did it some more. And that's why they became rich, because they dollar cost averaged it lows. And then they just held till the prices went crazy. And then they took a bunch of profits off the table.
Yeah, I mean, also, ILV, in my opinion, is so bear market resistant because it has that revenue distribution thing. I don't know if I'll ever invest in a token that doesn't do this sort of stuff. Like, dividends in stocks are so powerful. Why would any crypto not have dividends? It's like a worse stock market. Isn't this supposed to be better than the stock market? Everything should have some sort of dividend structure. It shouldn't just be like you're investing in a company and you're hoping other people buy the token and that's how you make money. No, if the company is profitable, you should be able to see that somehow. Okay. And not enough projects do that sort of stuff. And that's one of the reasons I like ILV is it's going to do that when it's generating revenue. And this is the phase where I'm like, okay, I believe in this vision and hopefully you guys make revenue. I don't know what they're going to make or if they're going to be really successful or anything like that, but I believe in them and I believe in the project. And I think that's important. Pretty much any token I go for nowadays is something like that. I think one of the first ones that came out that actually did try some of this sort of stuff, I think was Uni. You could earn some of the Uni fees back. I should go for every token. I don't know why tokens aren't doing that more often. It just baffles me.
So, part of the reason is the U.S. Securities and Exchange Commission will classify them as a security, and then there's no gateway of how to register and then be sellable as a security. And I think it's done on purpose. The power comes from a regulator and the power of saying no. And then you have to lobby them in order to get to yes. And you have to lobby them to get to these special exclusive things. And that's why the current SEC is pushing so hard to declare everything as security. So they have power over everything. And that's what they want, because when you have power and control, you can funnel political donations to places. That's what makes sense to me, why their stance doesn't actually make sense. If they were trying to make a fair and level playing field, they would be very open about what the criteria was. They would be overly transparent, and they've been the reverse of that. So that tells me their intention isn't to help the market do as well and help the end consumer do as well, and help these businesses be able to be created in an environment of clarity. They've had this massive lack of clarity. And so you're right that most tokens are worse than stocks, because what does the token give you? It doesn't give you ownership in the project. Does the token give you any claim on future revenues? Almost never. Only a few projects do that. Why? Well, the US will probably declare them as a security, but notice I still had to use the word probably, because it's not even clear. And if they are deemed a security, where can they even trade? Well, that's unclear too, because there are no security license exchanges, because the SEC won't call Binance or won't call Coinbase back for the past 3 years when they try to reach out to them and say, hey, what kind of pathway can we make? Maybe we could make a site where things that are deemed a security can be traded. Oh, I'm sorry, we've got too much time for you. I've got 3 meetings with Sam Bankman-Fried, but I can't meet with you, right? And that's what it's been at the US SEC. Why? I just think corruption. And maybe I'm wrong on that, because I don't know that. That's just what it adds up to me. But Gary Gensler seems very, very political since he came into that spot. And I didn't realize till he was in there and been a while that he would been the CFO for Hillary Clinton for America's campaign, the same campaign that paid for Russian dirt on Trump. And he would have probably been in the middle of that. And it was disappointing, because I had high hopes for this guy, Gary Gensler, who had taught blockchain at Harvard. And I thought, he's going to get the space. He's going to be really clear about everything. And he's actually been worse. He's been the opposite, even though he understands the space probably even better than the former chairman. And I'm like, well, just disappointing, because all this stuff then is going to go to Australia. It's going to go to Singapore. It's going to Portugal. It's going to Dubai, because it's going to happen. The U.S. can't make this not happen. They don't have that much power. All they can do is make sure that U.S. citizens can't benefit while it's happening. And that's what they're doing. And there's going to be a revolution in people voting for better politicians who get it. And the better politicians are going to then control the regulators who are just in the way. But that's why more crypto projects don't say, hey, we're going to give you access to some of the revenues and share it with them, because the likelihood, like the lack of clarity, like that acts as a massive stop sign and red light for these projects that even want to do that. Is they have a hard time being brave enough, because, well, what does that mean with U.S. investors? That's where 50 to 80% of the money is. Oh, so we just got to ignore that market because the regulatory uncertainty. I think in the future, as there is more regulatory certainty, I'd like to see that happen more, because generally when you're holding a crypto, your asset is less sure than a stock, because a stock, you actually own a percentage of the company. Whereas when you have a token, the project can decouple from its token, be like, thanks for the raise. That's great. And we appreciate it. And we're not going to have anything to do with our token anymore. Oh,
yeah. It really is the Wild West.
What was I buying then? I don't know. What were you buying? Oh, well, crap. Yeah, thanks for leaving us high and dry. Well, we never said the tokens were ownership in the company. You're right. You never said that. You also didn't clarify that you would just leave us high and dry once you had your initial capital. And I've only seen one project totally do it. It was called Debitum. I invested in it like 4 years ago, and they had a token, and they since have done nothing with the token, and the company's still alive. It was kind of like, yeah, thanks for the capital raise. We didn't even have to give you equity in the company for all that capital. And they don't actually say that. That's just what they behave like, right? So
it's a crazy space.
Levon he says Gala seems promising. What's your thoughts on Gala?
That's a good question. They've got a lot of games on Gala, and I've played one of them. I've heard a lot of mixed reviews here and there. I hear Townstar is garbage. It's just DeFi, but in game version and apparently not that good. Miranda's, I heard, was pretty good and stuff like that. So they're building a really cool ecosystem. And I will say Spider Tanks is probably leading the charge in Web3 right now. Spider Tanks is really good. It's really fun to play. Their tokenomics are actually really solid. And overall, they've got some great stuff. My biggest gripe is actually that they've split this token into like 5 billion tokens, and that shits me. They've got this great metaverse and this great ecosystem and 10 plus games, and a few of them are looking to be really promising games. But they don't all share the Gala token. They've all got their own tokens and stuff. That's just too confusing. You've got this beautiful blockchain technology, and you're wasting it. You're squandering it on some sort of greedy... It feels greedy. That's all I'm going to say. I don't know the story behind it, but it feels really greedy. The only other issue I have with it is, like, they're on their own network. I'm kind of over this whole your own network crap. Like, Axie did it with Ronin, and I get it. There weren't any layer 2s or anything at the time they built Ronin. That's really good on them. That's actually really impressive. I don't think Gala needed to do that. They had Polygon. Arbitrum came out probably shortly before it. IMX is out. Gala could have done some great things by building on one of these existing networks that's a bit easier to use, or it might be a little bit more widely adopted. But to be fair, the Gala system's not bad at all. It's got some great onboarding and stuff like that. I've used it a little bit. But yeah, I think Gala is really, really promising. I just don't like how their token isn't used in every single game as the only token. Everyone's so obsessed with creating a bunch of tokens for stuff that doesn't need tokens, and it's too confusing. I mean, why should you bother? You know what I mean?
I think the word that comes to my mind, you said the word greedy, which I agree with, and a second word that couples with that is money grab. And so, like, they have a big development studio. So on their mind and the decisions that they're making is, gosh, how do we make sure we can continue to pay our devs, that we can continue to be profitable? And so they're like, okay, we're going to sell these spider tanks for 10,000 for, say, a legendary and stuff. But then there's no real way for the person that buys that to make the money back. Now, some people buy it because they're like, oh, the game's getting lots of usage and it'll eventually work out. And it may, but your chances are way, 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 way smaller when you're paying such an upfront fee. And you're not even buying that from another user who may have bought it for cheap and then it went up to 10,000. You're buying it from them for 10,000. And I don't like that. I get they're balancing, how do we fund this for the future? But that's greedy. So Axie Infinity went a different way entirely, which was awesome. They did do an initial raise and they sold Axies, and you had a chance to get mystic parts on those Axies. And they raised some funds, like maybe a couple million, if even that. And then later they did a land sale and they raised maybe another couple million. And they struggled during the bear market of how do you continue developing and stuff. And then what is it? Animoca Brands came in and invested in equity in the company and really helped them with connections. But they didn't sell you anything else after this, right? What they did is, well, they did a few more Axie raises, like some different rounds, like some Axies they released in Japan or something. But what they did was they made it so that as you make money, they just take a small piece of that, the 4.25% transaction fee, as you sell stuff between each other. And this was, they had to get off of ETH. And so they created Ronin, which was awesome, because it couldn't have done what it did if they didn't get the hell off of ETH, because transaction fees were too high. You're paying a $30 transaction fee to exchange $7 of Smooth Love Potion. It didn't make sense. And so they went over to Ronin, which helped them continue to be able to grow, but also they could charge that transaction fee of 4.25%. So they only made money as their users made amazing money. And I was like, this idea is brilliant. It's like free to play in that you're confident enough in your product that you will let people have an experience to play it for free without charging them anything up front. But as they really enjoy it, then they might start paying for skins, or maybe they upgrade to a monthly thing that gives them greater access. Well, for them, it's like, yeah, just come in and make money in our environment. And as you do, then we make money. And it was like the perfect win-win and the model for the future. Because that is the model for the future, is get out of the way as a company. Don't sell your people massive, expensive stuff that they might have a chance to recoup in 20 years if they rent that thing out to people all the time. Why don't you just make it so your users can get lots of value, and as they get value and exchange that value, you make some money there? Now, it's a scary approach. I'm an advisor to Litcraft, and we had a lot of discussions about that, right? Because they were trying to decide what to do and how to fund development. And I shared with them what Axie did. And we had several discussions on that. And I feel like they took that, they internalized it, and they took that idea on steroids throughout Litcraft that, hey, we're just going to make a small transaction fee as people exchange things, but we're going to get out of the way and let people create everything in games and let them sell it to other people. And then we just make a small sliver of that. And I was like, oh man, that is the right setup for massive success. Make your users the winners out of it, right? Not you as the game maker, but your users the winners. And then you as the game maker will be a huge winner.
Yeah, well, as they say, when you go into the gold rush, the person who makes all the money is the dude selling the shovels. you gotta just build it, and they will come. And just the more people, that's where the world's going at the moment. It's all the attention economy. That's how like Facebook makes money and stuff. Like it's free to make a Facebook account, it's free to make an Instagram account, it's free to make a Twitter. But once you're on that platform, they've got your attention, and people are willing to pay for that. I think even advertising in games has been. I mean, honestly, I don't want advertising all over my games, but like there have been lots of a lot of the web browser flash games and like Miniclip. I don't know if you remember Miniclip. Miniclip was a pretty cool one. They had like thousands of like really crappy 2D games, but a lot of them were really, really fun. Like they were great games. They had pool and stuff. But basically they had just like splattered ads across their entire site. So they just built this platform where anyone could go and play awesome games in their browser just to kill some time, and they chucked ads in it. And that's all it's about. You don't need to charge people to play these games some of the time. It's more about getting all the people into the ecosystem and getting them all onto your games. And then after that, monetizing it, or monetizing their attention at least, is really not that difficult. But this is very much a volume thing. Like Axie couldn't do what it did without it had millions of active players. And that's no easy feat to get millions of active players into a game ecosystem, especially when the game's kind of average like Axie was. But anyone that can do that is confident is that, as you said, you don't need to sell them thousands of dollars worth of stuff. You can just get them in there, give them as much free to play stuff as you can. I like Illuvium's system. Illuvium isn't quite free to play. Technically, it's free to play, but the idea is that you would go on these runs and you would pay a tiny transaction fee to jump into the overworld and explore it. Now, although I love this system, and if it's cheap enough, I don't think it will annoy anyone. How I actually see it, how I view it, is your World of Warcraft subscription fee. The idea of World of Warcraft is you build this giant world that everyone just wants to get into so they can play with their friends, and you charge them $15 a month. That's kind of how I see Illuvium, is you build something awesome, charge them $15 a month, and Bob's your uncle.
Yeah, I do like that you can go to level 0 with no gas fees, right? So they can get a feel for it. They can go up and get some materials to upgrade, like their boots and visors, and even build their Axie, or not their Axie team, their Illuvium team, or whatever you would call it, and capture some alluvials. And so they can get a feel for it. And then they're like, I want to go into level 1 world. I'm going to pay $1 or whatever it would cost to get the fuel.
I'm hoping like 50 cents. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah, some small thing to get enough fuel to be able to go there and then be able to do that, so that then they're like, oh, cool. Oh, I got this. And I hope there's enough of like the gambling mechanism in that they go in and they're like, oh my gosh, there's a Scoriox, or I forget what the fully upgraded version of Scoriox is. But
it is the fully upgraded version.
Oh, the Scoriox is the big one.
Yeah.
It's a Furiox, and then
Fiery is the little one.
A Fiery, and then a Furiox, and then a Scoriox, or the Ramfire, right? The Ramfire is probably going to be amazing, like as far as everyone wants it. And then they can film like, as they're like wandering around, if they now have it where they're visible, or they go into the encounter and they have it and they video that. and then they're like screaming and they're like, oh my gosh, and then maybe they don't win the battle, and then they're like, oh my gosh, and then you have this like potential that was lost. It makes for great video, right? And then people watch those videos, and that's kind of what's going on with the loot boxes with CSGO, because people will film opening them, right? And they'll just kind of be like plowing through a bunch of them, and all of a sudden, oh my gosh, they'll get like some $1,200 or $12,000 skin, and they go crazy, and then that video goes viral on like TikTok.
Yeah, and then you make all your money back from those keys because the video went viral. It's not going to happen to everyone, but it's there, right? It's there for you to use.
So it'll be fun to see how that comes together. I like their integration between Illuvium Zero, where you can do the fuel and get the blueprints. Have you spent any time in Illuvium Zero?
Yeah. I've got all the blueprints on 2 of my plots, almost on my 3rd, and I'm starting on the 4th. And then I've got another plot that I'm playing. I've got a T4 that someone's lent me. And I'm playing that for content reasons. It's actually really cool. I've been recording every single click, every single thing I do on that T4 plot, and I'm going to time lapse it when I'm done. And the time lapse is coming together. It looks pretty cool. Seeing the city build up.
I only have one T3. I got a bunch of T2s and some T1s. That T3 I was able to bust through super fast just because the resource amplification, right? Fuel, as long as you can harvest at 150% efficiency, it turns 1 fuel into 3, even at a level 1 fuel site. And it just gets to the higher numbers. You need to upgrade things so much faster.
Oh, yeah. The T3s, T4s are insane. Even T2s are pretty good. T1s feel brutal, but I'm kind of glad they feel brutal. Like, I don't want it to be too easy. I don't like easy games, generally speaking. They
are way more brutal. Probably they'll be a lot better unless you get increased chances of getting blueprints on the higher tiers. If the chances end up being the same, it seems like tier 1 will be better for farming the blueprints because they won't be as good at farming for fuel comparatively. But if you don't get any bump in advantage for a higher tier towards your scans being successful, and when you're researching for blueprints, that being successful, then tier 1s will really be better for finding and harvesting blueprints. So
yeah, but I think ultimately the biggest thing is actually T1s are the slowest to build up the city. That's the biggest thing. Once they get to the end game, it's not that big of a differential. It's not that crazy. But what gets interesting is in the game, you've got things like the marketplace where you can just send resources to other people. I'm talking like, forget mega cities. They're going to come eventually. Let's forget about that for now. But I plan on bankrolling all of my smaller plots with my T3. I plan on just like, it'll be generating way more resources than it needs. So I'm just going to use it to send the resources out so that all the other plots can upgrade that much faster. You know what I mean? So I like that idea of if you own multiple plots, you kind of have that advantage. Or if you're in a guild or if you're in communities, you have that advantage as well. I mean, there'll be lots of spare elements that people just don't need. And I'm sure they'll be able to help each other out. Competitively, they probably shouldn't if they want to make the most out of their fuel. But, you know.
It'd be interesting to see how that comes together. Did you go through the pains to put together like a super plot or anything?
No, not myself. I didn't have the ETH for it. You know what I mean? But like, I have been meaning to like get some more plots kind of near my other plots, but I've got all different regions at the moment because I just want a vast array of blueprints available to me.
I think I have 2 that are touching corners, but like trying to piece together the price gets so amplified over. So I think about return on investment. And it's like, yes, if you get like, say, 4 all touching each other and you can get a super plot and they benefit from each other's efficiencies and stuff. And I guess you could probably share resources without a transaction cost to go across those or however it works together. That's cool. But literally to put that together, you would pay 4 to 8x over what you normally would have paid for just 4 plots that were in more random locations. So I'm like, it seems to me the higher ROI is just paying the lower fee. You can get way more plots. The cool thing about way more plots is it makes it easier to take profits when the market goes crazy. Because if you have one plot, your option is to sell or to hold. when the market goes crazy, do you sell or do you hold? Whereas if you have lots
Mhm.
of them, you can start taking profits at different zones.
Yeah, for sure. But I do like the idea that you don't necessarily need a mega city to benefit from all that stuff because the marketplace will consider distance between the plots. So you can just have kind of a few plots in a similar zone, a similar area, and sending resources between them will be relatively easy or relatively cheap and quick and all the rest of it. And I really like that they're building in those proper economics into the systems. And then eventually you'll have some sort of PvP systems and things like that as well. And that'll be really exciting. It'll all be opt-in. There won't be anything crazy, but it'll make it more engaging for sure.
Now, I have a question because I get Discord fatigue, so I cannot follow like so many projects Discord, and because I'm
Tell me about
invested
it.
in so many different things, like I don't know. Do you know that little thing that produces like a 3D image of like the bio data? What the hell does that thing do? Because I built one in the last iteration, and they're like, oh, it makes it easier to attract so that your scans are successful or something. Number one, I don't think that functionality was implemented. But number two, you have to have the bio data of that already. So,
Okay, so it's mostly cosmetic, but it does have a pretty powerful feature. The reason it doesn't work in the alpha is because it's useless in the alpha. Now, what it does is say you find Tiru, which is fire and I think fighter. I don't know if the fighter matters. Let's just say fire. Tiru is fire. If you put that little hologram, like you said, you need the biodata already. You put that little hologram, now you will have an increased chance of finding fire alluvials with all your other scans. So not necessarily Tiru, but you might have a higher chance of finding your Ramphie because yes, that's pretty much the simplest way I can explain it. So we'll have a use, but currently the only 5 biodata available are all different affinities.
Yep.
So technically they can't, you can't get any of that. You can't get any of that advantage.
Another question is, how are you going to get like, so say like the higher levels, like you can upgrade your scanner. Is that going to give you an augmented chance of finding biodata, or does it give you a chance to get higher levels of data so that you're not getting just the stage 1 alluvials?
None of it's been confirmed, and I think they're still working on a lot of the game balance and stuff like that.
Okay.
But it's my understanding that it does give you a higher chance at the next stages. So level 1 scanner has probably the highest chance for a stage 1 alluvial, a level 2 scanner, a stage 2 alluvial, and that sort of stuff. I think you're right. But I'm not sure. And I think material labs are the same. Whereas a level 2 material lab will give you a higher chance at a stage 2 blueprint and a stage 3 blueprint. So it could still be a Ramfire. A Ramfire will have a stage 1, 2, and 3 blueprint for the Ramfire, and the same for Ramphie and stuff. But the idea would be that your level 2 material lab has a better chance of getting you that level 2 blueprint. But you also have to be progressive as well. You have to get the level 1 blueprint, and now you're allowed to get the level 2 blueprint. Then there's higher level material labs will make it easier, I think. But again, none of that's 100% confirmed. I think they're still working on those systems. And once they have them in place, I will make sure to make a video. Don't worry.
Now, is there anything, do we know when we're going to when the end of this current round ends and when we're going to have to then mint the blueprints?
It's hard to say. The minting window won't close before open beta. Okay. Like basically that minting window will close at the same time open beta launches. Okay. When that minting window opens is anyone's guess, but Johnny has made it clear in Discord that you're going to have plenty of time to, like, they're going to announce it as much in advance as they possibly can. But they're working on the dev side of that at the moment. And that's, as you can understand, that's all the blockchain shenanigans. That's probably the hardest part of this entire thing. But it sounds like they're making some good progress.
Yeah, that's exciting. And Immutable X seems like the right choice for them. I mean, the gas fees are just so cheap on Immutable X. And
it's zero.
I think Immutable X will end up being, are they truly zero, or is it so low that it's like not even workable?
So I need to double check my research on this. I keep forgetting to do that. I keep meaning to check it up on this. But basically how it works is it folds all the transactions together for starters. So like it kind of like, it does confirm them kind of like on this layer 2 of Ethereum and stuff, but it batches them all together, so it's super cheap for Immutable to do it. But Immutable actually covers the gas fees. How it works is those transaction fees on their marketplace. So when you're buying all your NFTs from other people and stuff, Immutable takes a small cut.
Yeah.
They use that to subsidize everyone else's gas fees.
Yes.
It's kind of like a tax thing. So like everyone's kind of trading on their marketplace and they're making a bunch of money. And then they're like, look, because you've come here for the zero gas fees, we're going to take kind of fees from this other section and we're going to use that to subsidize gas fees so that all your actual gameplay is seamless. It doesn't work if you have no volume in the ecosystem. Thankfully, they do, and I don't think they need very much to make it work.
Right.
So technically, there's a little bit of risk. If that is how it works, I think there's more to it. But really, in the end, it's a pretty genius system.
I like that method a lot better, right? So you don't have to approve a gas transaction if every time you're trying to like mint things and go through and like, oh, I got to make sure I have IMX token in my wallet or whatever, the normal way you would be used to. And just taking a piece of the transactions just makes it more seamless. It gets it out of the way. So it's not truly free, but it feels like it's free, which is
well,
great.
it is free. If you never ever traded an NFT on IMX, then technically every single thing you do is free. Okay,
Right.
It's only the NFT trading where you pay it's the marketplace fee, but they're using those marketplace fees to subsidize just the general public's gas fee. But every time you do a transaction, you don't have to pay gas. IMX takes care of it for you.
And I like that they're permissioned because they kind of have to be so that, one of the problems we saw was, I forget the name of that trade ecosystem that they opened up so that people could bypass the royalty fees as they trade NFTs, right? So you could sell your Bored Ape and not pay any royalty fees, which then breaks down the mechanisms that funds the projects that put the things together. So as much as we hate paying those fees, we'll get way less investment in companies making cool things if we take away their mechanisms to earn that's why the importance of patent protections. And people are like, oh, patent protections, that's so stupid. Well, it's stupid if they're too long, but nobody will put in money into research and development if they don't have some period of time where they have patent protection. And so though we would all like to pay cheaper fees, you do have to think about development costs, and it has to be worth it for the game maker the game makers, who might be 100 people that put in years of effort to create something before the project's even profitable. And then if we take away their profitability, okay, it seems that it saved us money on that one particular game, but then every other future game maker would be like, well, we're not going to fund development and everything because they might take away our ability to make revenues on it. And we're not going to go through 4 years of our life and all this thing and, maybe even ruin a marriage because I'm working 80 hours a week to make this all work. And then we're super successful and then they take away our ability to make profits. And so what happens is no good games get made at that point. So
I spent 4 years studying industrial design.
yeah,
I feel very strongly about royalty fees. if you don't have royalties, I'm not interested.
yeah, exactly. Because that's how you make money, right? For what you did and all the work you put into things, there has to be a way that you can, by creating good stuff, be able to make money on it.
Yeah. It feels rough. Yeah, it feels rough losing out on that sort of like, well, if that's a part of the deal, that should always be a part of the deal. I don't like the idea of if I myself made something and I said, I don't care about royalties, then sure, that's fine. But if I said I care about royalties and then someone then goes back on that, that's a level of disrespect I really don't like. Well, it rubs me the wrong way.
It's a level of theft, right? It's like changing the deal after the deal is made without your permission. And it's like, yeah, so if your project is unsuccessful because you built something nobody wants to play, well, then that was the risk you took. But if you build something that everyone loves and wants to play, and then they just find a way so that you make nothing so that they can keep a little extra, yeah, I don't like it. And as an investor, I think about things, and this was what I learned through experience in business. Free is often the worst price. Why? Because free doesn't make sure the other side gets any value. So, like, for example, when my channel was fairly new, I talked to a good friend and I was like, hey, you have a lot of trading experience. I'd love for you to make a course and I'll help make it, but you're the expert at this. And he's like, great. And I said, what price should we charge? And he said, oh, we should do it for free. And I was like, look, I would love to be able to give away that information for free, but I know how much effort it's going to take, particularly on your part, in order to make that. And how are you going to prioritize it when you know you're going to make nothing from it? And he's like, oh, it'll be fine. Well, 3 months into it, he's like, oh, I'm so busy with all this other stuff, and I can't get around to the course. And the reason he couldn't get around to the course, because he knew he was having to do it for free, and there was no chance to make money from it. So the course never got made. Why? Because free is often the worst price. And I understand that with game developers, game makers, but I can think they can be too greedy in making sure, well, I want to make sure up front I'm making this amount of money and stuff. And then it's like, I don't know that I'm getting enough value to buy your items. For example, big mistake Gala made is they sold these things so that you could like raise horses or whatever, right? And stables, and they were quite expensive. And I was like, oh, that's really cool because mounts will probably be good in their game. I love that. And then you know what they did? They later sold horses. And it's like, wait, what's the point of getting a stable when we thought we were exclusively going to have rights to make the horses, and then you sell horses to everyone? Like, F you. Like, it's a betrayal, right? And I was like, oh, boy, that was a bad move, Gala. And I don't know what their defense is. They might say, well, we never promised we wouldn't sell horses. But if you're like, oh, you can have these stables and horses, it's not clear that you're going to sell horses down the road. You kind of stabbed your people in the back who might have spent a lot of money buying those. Thank goodness I didn't, but I was tempted to. I thought that's really cool. If I had and then they did that, I would be done with Gala permanently.
Yeah, you can't like tolerate that backstabbing stuff. And I think, decentralization is so important to so many people. And I don't think it's the end of the world if something isn't decentralized. But as long as you wear your heart on your sleeve, that's all that matters.
Yeah, agreed. Valentine asks, are you guys somehow worried about the ILV token? What do you think about the allocation of this token?
There's nothing really wrong with it. I would like it to be a little bit more evenly spread. There's a handful of whales that buy up a lot of the tokens, but the staking mechanism and everything's been pretty good. The team has quite a few of the tokens. The treasury has a large amount, and then there's a lot of seed investors in the recent capital raise. But there's also been about 30% of the supply was done through the staking mechanism, which I don't think the team tokens counted towards. So the team would have had to buy tokens and then stake them to be able to get tokens from the staking rewards and stuff. So overall, it's not too bad. And then there was the public sale, which was like 10%. So 40 to 50% went to the community overall. If you include maybe like the in-game yield pool, which no one owns yet until they distribute it for whatever reason that might make sense, which is currently going on the Illuvitar's leaderboard, like a tiny portion of it, like barely anything. So overall, it's not too bad. It's not too bad. But I don't know that much about that sort of stuff, generally speaking. I don't, as long as the team hasn't defined like 50% of the tokens are ours from the very beginning, I generally don't pay too much attention to it. I think it's fine. I trust the team either way. I think they'll do right by us.
I've heard a complaint that's like, oh, well, they say, you're going to have governance, but the team, the brothers own so many of the tokens and they're just going to make whatever decisions they want. My feelings on this are, do I like the decisions they make already? And I love the decisions they make already. So I don't mind somebody being in charge and having the ultimate say so when the majority of decisions they make are really, really good and beneficial to everyone. So like kings aren't even a bad thing when you have a king that makes good decisions all the time for the people. The reason why you don't generally trust monarchies is because even if you have the best king in the world, then guess who becomes the next king? Like their son, and their son might be a spoiled little brat who's selfish, doesn't care about the people. So let's say, they have 51% of the token. So essentially the family makes a decision on where they can really veto and override everything. Well, that's not a bad thing if they're constantly making good decisions for what the people are doing. And here's the thing, they're not operating in a vacuum. So they know if they're trying to be tyrannical with their project, they're just going to lose all their players to another project. And so, like, you're seeing that with Gala. I feel they went a little bit we're going to make sure our needs are taken care of and not doing enough for the other side, that they're going to drive people away if they don't reverse course on that massively with some apologies. Because like Gala is one of the biggest, earliest successes in blockchain gaming, but that doesn't guarantee them in the future if they blow through that social capital, and they're blowing through it. And so if, say, Illuvium ends up being massively successful in this bull run, and then like the voting powers start making really dumb decisions because they have the majority of votes, then they're going to blow through their social capital and people will go to a different game.
Well, I think our governance system is actually really, really, really great. And it is based off the synthetics one, as you'd probably expect. But it does a few things really well. Firstly, it is a quadratic voting system, which means that it is the square root of your tokens that's used. As far as we know, the team hasn't like split their tokens up into like 5 wallets. They don't, as you said, they don't present that tyrannical force, and they have no interest in doing that sort of stuff, right? And it's more about voter turnout. With the current turnout in the bear market, then yeah, they're holding enough votes to be able to vote in a council member pretty efficiently, but they don't have so many votes that they can vote in the entire board. That's definitely not the case. But if there were more people showing up to vote, then they would barely have that. They wouldn't be able to guarantee any seat or anything. So it's a little bit up to the community to be against that if they wanted to be. And until they show up, then it's kind of their decision in a sense, or their indecision. But the other side of things is they can really only vote in one council member in its current state. And even then, you've got another 3 or 4 other council members, and it's voting between them. It's not just every single proposal that goes through, they're putting their big bags into the thing and being like, I vote yes or I vote no. There's been a democratically elected DAO of 4 or 5 sub-councils now, or 4 sub-councils in the main council. And everyone on there has a say, right? And they can't vote in more than one person per each of these sub-councils. So, I mean, it's pretty decentralized at the moment. In terms of the governance process overall, it's doing pretty well.
Yeah. Well, Scoriox is staying up extremely late in order to do this stream, and we appreciate the sacrifice with you being here with us. If you haven't followed Scoriox's channel yet and you're interested in blockchain gaming, you need to subscribe to his channel, because I watch his videos. I love what I learn from it. His information is so good, and I'm really picky about who I'll take the time to watch. I have to, number one, feel like they're operating from a good, fair place. Secondly, their information has to be worth watching. And so I personally follow him and watch his videos, and I suggest you take a look at it and do it too. Scoriox, thank you so much for joining us today and just having some fun banter around where blockchain gaming is going, what's going on with Illuvium, where this space could go, and sharing your thoughts.
Yeah, really appreciate it, man. Yeah, definitely come subscribe if you want to learn more about Illuvium in particular. But there's actually quite a few great games building on IMX, so it's an exciting time to be in Web3, and I can't wait to see so many of these things launch.
Demoing a bunch. So if you want to keep abreast of what's coming up and other good games that are coming up, like follow Scoriox, because he's in there demoing some of the betas and getting a feel for what's good and what's not. And I like your take on things. So there's a good reason why, I watch your videos. It helps me be more informed with what is up and coming and what might be a good game.
Yeah, for sure. I think I love the IMX ecosystem a little bit too much. I love Polygon as well. There's not enough time in the world to research Illuvium and anything else. Illuvium just takes up so much time, and that's why it's all a team effort. I can rely on people like yourself and other crypto influencers to talk about individual projects. And I find anyone that talks about projects so broadly is like, oh, I know a lot about Polygon, Solana, Ethereum. You don't. You know maybe a lot about one of them. You don't know enough about all of them to really educate me on it. I think that's what it's all about sometimes,
Yeah, we only have so much time to focus, and the space is getting so broad. We can't know everything, and if we try to be an expert on everything, we can't. So one of the things I do is I find experts in different spaces that way I'm just able to leverage their time and attention, right? Because we only have so much attention. So
yeah, it's a smart way to do it, that's for sure. And I love doing it myself, for sure. All right, have a good one, man.
All right, thanks so much for joining us. Now, if you're watching this, are you ready to be a rainmaker and join the Navy SEALs of crypto to level up your crypto game? You might say, well, I don't know, this channel doesn't have 1 million subscribers yet. And that's true. And we could have way, way more subscribers if we always talked about the coins and the tokens that were already super hot and that had pumped tremendously, because that's what everyone's searching for. And we consciously don't do that, because as an investor first, I like to talk about things when I feel they're undervalued. And unfortunately, when they're undervalued, almost nobody is searching for them. But they make the timing on them is way, way better than when they've already gone 10 or 20 or 100x. And that, often people who are new to crypto don't understand that. So they think the bigger a channel is, the better their information is. And it might even be the reverse of that. There are endless channels out there that will give people exactly what they're looking for on those tokens that just went up 100x, instead of talking about those projects before they went 100x. Well, that's what we focus on here. Appreciate all of you joining us. This wrap, well, if you've been a fan of the channel for a while, you know what this wrap is all about. But these principles just reinforce the principles of investment that I use that help me be successful in real estate investment, but even way more successful in crypto investment, because the volatility is so high in crypto and the cycles are so short. It's made me millions of dollars in just the past 6 years. Thanks so much.
Into the space, chasing all of the gains, chasing the pumps and all of the hype trains. But like in life, shit bad before you could. Was told to buy when it was pouring like a rainmaker should. I buy when it's down, don't chase the boats that I miss. Cause I always made the time in mind. I take the one out cause I'm patient like that, and I'll wait for the right time. I sell when it's high, I buy when it's low. They call me rich, they call me smart. I'm just a rainmaker running the show. Calculated investments, I don't leave with my heart. The principles are simple, they're leaving a mark. Buy when it's boring, just gotta be smart. I sell when it's hype, like all the channels they pump it. That's when I was selling, go parabolic and dump it. They call me rich, they call me smart. I'm a rainmaker, making my own start. I'm with the future, learning the past. Makes the time fly by, years going so fast. The game plan is mine, I'll own it now. When I reach the top, haters asking me how. Cause I'm a rainmaker, investments I love, and I follow what I learn, not relying on luck. Time is never better, the time like the present. The next 5 years is a gift and it's feeling like heaven. I'm committed to learn, to study and to know that nothing comes easy, but with knowledge the game show. Sticking out this road, cause soon will come a bear market. Learning and growing, and when it's slow will be the target. They say it's come out, Bitcoin is dead. The massive decreases can get to your head. Sticking around, the time is better. Strong like that, I'll let the others be fretters. 2 years time, the ball will bring back the gains. That makes it worth the effort, cause here comes the rain. So let's go rainmakers, let's make it all happen. They go with the hate, say the haters be crapping. I'm here for 5 years, let's do this together. The time is right, the time could be better. They call me rich, they call me smart. I'm a rainmaker, making my own start. I'm with the future, learning the past. Makes the time fly by, years going so fast. The game plan is mine, I'll own it now. When I reach the top, haters asking me how. Cause I'm a rainmaker, investments I love, and I follow what I learn, not relying on luck. Haters be hating, the time to slow down. Addressing what they say when I'm wearing my crown. They're chasing green candles like someone who was new. I got a vision that was bigger, helping me to push through. I'm still human and sometimes it is rough, and that's what makes me special, simply I stay tough. Cause I'm a rainmaker, investments I love, and I follow what I learn, not relying on luck.